Have you ever spent days thinking about a conversation that lasted only a few seconds? Maybe someone looked at you differently for a moment. Maybe their voice sounded slightly colder than usual. Maybe they said, "I'm fine," but something about it didn't feel right. While everyone else moved on, your mind stayed there, replaying the moment again and again. You kept wondering what they really meant, what you might have missed, or why the feeling wouldn't leave you alone. If this sounds familiar, you're not the only one. Some people seem able to let things go without effort, while others carry every interaction much longer than they want to. On the outside, nothing looks different. They still smile, they still show up, they still tell everyone they're okay. But inside, every emotion, every conversation, and every subtle detail leaves a deeper mark. Sometimes it feels like you're experiencing the same world as everyone else, but somehow feeling every part of it more intensely. But what if this isn't simply overthinking? What if the reason certain words, faces, and moments stay with you for so long has nothing to do with weakness or a lack of emotional control? Psychology is beginning to suggest that some people are wired to process the world differently. Their brains and nervous systems don't filter experiences the same way most people do. They notice more, absorb more, and feel more. The question isn't why you can't let things go. The real question is why your mind was built to hold on so tightly in the first place. And today, we're going to explore the hidden psychological mechanisms behind people who seem to feel everything more deeply than everyone around them. One of the most misunderstood traits of people who feel deeply is their ability to notice emotions that never get spoken out loud. Most people focus on the words coming out of someone's mouth. They hear, "I'm fine," and accept it at face value. But sensitive people often notice something else entirely. They notice the slight hesitation before the answer. They notice the forced smile that disappears a little too quickly. They notice tired eyes hiding behind laughter. It's as if their attention naturally drifts beneath the surface of every interaction. They are not only listening to what is being said, they are reading tone, facial expressions, body language, and all the tiny details that most people overlook. Imagine sitting across from a friend who insists everything is okay after going through something painful. Everyone else believes them and moves on, but something inside you feels unsettled. You notice the sadness hidden behind their smile. You hear the heaviness in their voice. Even when you try to ignore it, the feeling remains. This ability can feel confusing because it often makes you question yourself. You wonder if you're imagining things or reading too much into the situation. But time after time, you discover your instincts were right. The person who said they were okay eventually admits they were struggling all along. The truth is, you're not paranoid, and you're not looking for problems where none exist. Your mind is simply tuned to signals that other people miss. While most people hear the words, you hear the emotions hiding underneath them. And because of that, you often understand pain long before anyone else can see it. One of the most misunderstood traits of people who feel deeply is their ability to notice emotions that never get spoken out loud. Most people focus on the words someone says. They hear, "I'm fine," and accept it without question. But sensitive people often notice something else. They notice the hesitation before the answer, the forced smile that fades too quickly, or the tired eyes hiding behind laughter. It's as if their attention naturally drifts beneath the surface of every interaction. They are not only listening to words, they are reading tone, facial expressions, body language, and subtle emotional signals that others overlook. Imagine sitting across from a friend who insists everything is okay after going through something painful. Everyone else believes them, but something inside you feels unsettled. You sense a sadness that doesn't match their words. Even when you try to ignore it, the feeling remains. This ability often makes sensitive people doubt themselves. They wonder if they're imagining things or reading too much into situations. Yet time and time again, they discover they were right. The truth is, they are not paranoid or suspicious. Their mind is simply tuned to emotions that other people fail to notice. While most people hear the words, they hear the feelings hiding underneath them. Another trait of people who feel deeply is that they don't just understand other people's emotions, they absorb them. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately felt uncomfortable without knowing why? Or sat next to someone who was anxious and found yourself becoming anxious too? For some people, emotions are not something they observe from a distance. They experience them almost as if those feelings belong to them. When a friend is heartbroken, they carry that sadness long after the conversation ends. When someone is angry, their own body becomes tense. When people around them are stressed, they often feel that stress without realizing it. It's as though they are emotional sponges, constantly soaking up the feelings of everyone around them. This is why crowded environments can sometimes feel so exhausting. They are not only managing their own emotions, but unconsciously carrying pieces of other people's emotions as well. Over time, this can make the world feel much heavier than it seems for everyone else. People may tell them they are too emotional or too sensitive, but the truth is often very different. They are not weak. They are carrying emotional weight that was never theirs to begin with, and unless they learn how to separate their own feelings from the feelings of others, they can spend years exhausted by burdens they were never meant to carry. For people who feel deeply, sensitivity doesn't stop with emotions. It often extends into the world around them. While some people can spend hours in a crowded bar, a loud party, or a busy office without much trouble, highly sensitive people often leave these places feeling completely drained. It's not because they dislike people. Their nervous system is simply processing more information than most people realize. The music, bright lights, conversations, strong smells, and constant movement all compete for their attention at the same time. What feels like background noise to someone else can feel overwhelming to them. This sensitivity also affects how they respond to negative experiences. A violent movie scene, a disturbing news story, or a tragic video online can stay with them long after it's over. Even when they know it isn't happening to them personally, their body often reacts as if it is. Their heart rate increases, their muscles tense, and the emotional impact lingers. Because of this, they are often misunderstood. Others may call them dramatic or difficult, but the truth is much simpler. They are not being difficult. Their nervous system is overloaded. While most people filter out much of the world around them, they continue absorbing it. They are not rejecting the world. They are simply carrying more of it than most people ever have to. One of the biggest misunderstandings about people who feel deeply is that others often mistake their need for solitude as rejection. After a long day of conversations, emotions, responsibilities, and constant stimulation, many sensitive people don't want more interaction. They don't want to talk, explain themselves, or be surrounded by more noise. What they want most is a quiet room, a little darkness, and a moment where nobody needs anything from them. To the people around them, this can sometimes look cold or distant, but the truth is very different. Their emotional battery has simply run out. Throughout the day, they absorb so much information and emotional energy that eventually their nervous system becomes exhausted. Silence becomes their way of recovering. Solitude becomes their way of recharging. When they spend time alone, their thoughts begin to settle, their emotions become easier to manage, and their energy slowly returns. This is why many highly sensitive people need more alone time than others. They are not avoiding people because they don't care. They are stepping away because they need space to come back to themselves. They are not cold. They are recovering from emotional overload. Another trait many deeply sensitive people share is a strong discomfort with time pressure. In a world that praises multitasking, rushing, and constant productivity, they often feel like they are moving against the current. It's not because they are lazy or incapable. In fact, they often produce thoughtful and high-quality work. The difference is that their minds naturally go deeper. When they receive information, they don't simply look for the quickest answer. They analyze it from different angles, consider possible outcomes, and notice details that others might miss. This depth of processing can be a strength, but it also requires time. When multiple tasks arrive at once or a deadline becomes too intense, their mind can become overwhelmed. The more pressure they feel, the harder it becomes to think clearly. Their thoughts begin to scatter, stress levels rise, and sometimes they freeze completely. From the outside, it may look like they are struggling to keep up, but the truth is often the opposite. They are processing too much, not too little. They are not slow thinkers, they are deep thinkers. And their best work usually appears when they are given enough space, enough focus, and enough time to fully explore a problem before being forced to move on. One of the most painful experiences for people who feel deeply is their tendency to remain trapped in the past long after everyone else has moved on. A careless comment from years ago can still echo in their mind. An embarrassing mistake that nobody else remembers can suddenly replay in vivid detail. They often find themselves revisiting old conversations, wondering what they should have said differently, or questioning decisions they made long ago. It's not because they enjoy dwelling on the past. It's because their memories are strongly connected to emotion. They don't just remember what happened. They remember how it felt. A painful moment can return with the same heaviness in the chest, the same regret, and the same emotional sting it carried the first time. This is why even small experiences can leave deep marks. A disappointed look, a critical remark, or a moment of rejection may stay with them far longer than anyone expects. They repeatedly ask themselves questions like, "Why did I say that?" Or, "Why didn't I do something differently?" Over time, these thoughts can become difficult to escape, but this doesn't mean they are stubborn or obsessed with the past. Their emotional memory is simply stronger than average. What looks like an inability to move on is often a mind that remembers not only the event itself, but every feeling attached to it. Many people who feel deeply experience something frustrating whenever conflict appears. In the middle of an argument, their mind suddenly goes blank. They know something feels unfair. They know they want to defend themselves, yet the words refuse to come. Later, when the situation is over, they think of everything they wish they had said. Because of this, many sensitive people assume they are weak or bad at standing up for themselves. But the reality is often very different. Their nervous system reacts strongly to tension. A raised voice, harsh criticism, or emotional confrontation can feel overwhelming. As stress rises, their body shifts into protection mode. Their heart races, their muscles tighten, and clear thinking becomes more difficult. Instead of preparing to fight back, they often freeze. This is why they may stay quiet, avoid confrontation, or even apologize when they've done nothing wrong. Their goal is rarely to win the argument. Their goal is to make the tension stop. Peace feels safer than conflict. From the outside, this behavior can look like weakness or a lack of confidence, but it is often a protective response happening beneath the surface. They are not weak. Their nervous system is simply trying to protect them from an emotional threat that feels far more intense than most people realize. One of the most exhausting struggles for people who feel deeply is their difficulty saying no. Even when they are tired, overwhelmed, or emotionally drained, they often find themselves agreeing to things they don't want to do. A friend asks for a favor. A coworker needs help. A family member makes another request. Deep down, they know they should protect their time and energy, yet they still say yes. The reason is not that they are weak or incapable of setting boundaries. It's that they feel other people's emotions very strongly. Before saying no, they imagine the disappointment on the other person's face. They picture the frustration, the awkward silence, or the feeling of letting someone down. Because those emotions feel so real to them, saying no creates immediate guilt. As a result, saying yes often feels easier, even when it comes at their own expense. Over time, this can leave them exhausted and emotionally drained. But the truth is, they are not foolish. They simply feel the pain of other people too clearly. Their compassion is so strong that they often sacrifice themselves to avoid causing discomfort to someone else. Unless they learn to balance kindness with boundaries, they can spend years carrying burdens that were never meant to be theirs. Up to this point, it might seem as though sensitivity is nothing more than a burden. It can make emotions stronger, memories heavier, and everyday life more exhausting. But there is another side to this story that often gets overlooked. The same sensitivity that amplifies pain also amplifies beauty. People who feel deeply do not only experience the difficult parts of life more intensely, they also experience joy, wonder, and meaning in ways that many others never do. A song is not just a song to them. Sometimes a melody can bring tears to their eyes without a single word being spoken. A piece of art can leave them standing in silence, feeling connected to something they cannot fully explain. A sunset, the sound of rain, or a quiet walk through nature can create a sense of peace so powerful that it feels overwhelming. While others may simply notice these moments, sensitive people often feel them with their whole being. In many ways, their nervous system is tuned to a wider emotional range. If sadness cuts deeper, then joy reaches higher. If disappointment lingers longer, then moments of beauty become unforgettable. This is the hidden gift of sensitivity. It is not only the ability to feel pain more strongly, but also the ability to experience life with greater depth, color, and meaning. After hearing all of these struggles, it can be tempting to believe that being highly sensitive is a flaw. Many sensitive people spend years trying to become tougher, less emotional, and more like everyone else. But what if the problem was never who they are? What if the real problem was the environment they were trying to survive in? Psychologists often use a powerful metaphor to explain this idea: the difference between dandelions and orchids. Most people are like dandelions. They can grow in many different conditions and continue functioning even when life becomes difficult. Highly sensitive people, however, are often more like orchids. Orchids are deeply affected by their surroundings. In harsh environments filled with criticism, stress, or emotional neglect, they struggle much more than others. Looking at that, it is easy to assume they are weaker. But that is only half the story. When an orchid receives the right conditions, it blooms into something extraordinary. The same is true for sensitive people. When they are understood instead of judged, supported instead of criticized, and given space instead of constant pressure, their strengths begin to emerge. Their empathy becomes wisdom. Their intuition becomes insight. Their emotional awareness becomes strength. Their creativity begins to flourish. What once looked like a weakness reveals itself as a gift. They are not broken. They are not defective. They simply need the right environment to thrive. Just as an orchid should not be judged by its ability to survive in a desert, sensitive people should not judge themselves by how well they function in places that were never meant for them. If you recognized yourself in these experiences, there is something important you need to remember. The goal is not to become less sensitive. The goal is to learn how to work with your sensitivity instead of fighting against it. You do not need to force yourself to be as tough as everyone else. You need to protect the way you naturally function. Start by setting boundaries. Not every problem is yours to solve, and not every emotion is yours to carry. Give yourself permission to spend time alone without guilt. Solitude is not selfishness. It is often the way your mind and nervous system recover. Pay attention to the environments you place yourself in. Constant negativity, chaos, and toxic relationships can drain you faster than you realize. And finally, never underestimate the healing power of beauty. Music, art, nature, silence, and meaningful moments can restore parts of you that stress slowly wears down. Sensitivity is not a flaw. It is not a mistake. It is simply a nervous system that experiences the world more deeply than most. When you learn how to care for that gift, it becomes a strength rather than a burden. If you saw yourself in any of these experiences, I'd love to hear from you. Which part of this video felt the most familiar? Share your thoughts in the comments below. You may discover that you're not as alone as you've always felt. And if you'd like to explore more psychology and self-discovery, don't forget to subscribe and join our community.